Well, this is it. We've finally got here. It's the first episode of the Bullhorns and Sirens podcast.
It's only taken
mad.
a lot to finally get us all in the same room together again.
Yeah.
However long.
Yeah, so welcome everyone.
Actually, I think the last time we were all together was pre-COVID?
No, we've met since.
What, as a free?
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in if you are tuning in. I mean, if you're not, then that thank you's redundant anyway because you don't even listen. This podcast is going to sort of be a different setup and to what your normal average podcast is. We'll have topics per episode, but it's very much sort of just its own format. We're not following any sort of sterile routine or anything.
No.
And the idea is, I think between the three of us, we all have quite a passion for sort of mentoring and clinical education.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Look at me like I'm... Yeah. And I think with that, you know, this sort of stems on from the other bits that we do that we wanted to launch a podcast in line with that. So we known each other for a long time, 8-9 years.
Something like that.
Like, ridiculously long. And so we run the Pocket Clinician brand, which does pocketbooks and pocket aids and other sort of like social media content for education and mentoring. And then we wanted to make a podcast off the back of that and just see how it goes, really.
And
That's
it's nice because we've all got different experiences. Like, we all work in different services or different trusts. We've all got into it in different ways, and it would be quite good to share those experiences. And I suppose this podcast is more geared up for like aspiring paramedics or student paramedics, but also those already on the road that, you know, want to listen to some anecdotes and also maybe just learn a little bit about you know, what we get up to, and it's hopefully it'll be quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're quite well placed as well, because between the three of us, I think we know quite a lot of different sort of specialists and people who down the line we're intending on having on as guests. So we've got some critical care paramedics, midwifery specialists, people that are in specialist roles within the ambulance service, such as our own James, who's in the holiday and recreation team. Can I call it that?
Wow.
Oh, can I not say that?
No.
Oh no, I can't say that. Okay.
Jesus.
He's in the hazardous area response team.
Anyway,
We can edit that, right?
shall we?
Yeah. Cool.
Shall we introduce ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Fine. I'm Tommy. Nice to meet you. James and Sam, nice to meet you as well.
He just waved. There's no camera.
Yeah, no, you can't see me. But yeah, so my ambulance service life started nearly 10 years ago as an 18-year-old, mere, immature, young, not having a clue what I was doing. But I got a job as a call taker in control. Worked my way up to be a dispatcher, and then they moved the control room to somewhere that I can't really commute to. So that's when I moved out on the road. Got an ECA role. With a trust. Oh, we're going to say that, aren't we? We're not going to talk about the trust that we work for, just because the anecdotes that we might say, we don't want them to be sort of links to...
We don't want you to know who our crewmates are.
Yeah, that's it. But anyway, so yeah, I went out on the road as an ECA, and then did that for a couple of years, and then moved to another trust, and then became a technician. And then in November last year, so we're talking, 4 or 5 months ago now, I joined the Cumbria apprenticeship degree for the paramedic course, so that's going well, and that's pretty much it really. That's me in a nutshell. Yeah, very uninteresting, but yeah. What about you, Sam?
So I started off in St John on their commercial side when I was about 18, 19, and just doing like their sort of subcontracts for other ambulance trusts, responding to like the lower acuity calls and bits like that, and then also doing like PTS ad hoc with them, as well as their other contracts with the paediatric retrieval service. So I enjoyed that. I did that for about 5 years, and then I wanted some career progression, so I moved to an NHS trust, where I started as an ECA, or the equivalent of, and then I did our in-house program, so I went up to associate practitioner, and then from associate practitioner got on a paramedic program. Our in-service program was run by, are we saying university names or?
Yeah, I said Cumbria.
Oh, you said Cumbria, didn't you? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, so I did mine with St George's through my trust, and then qualified in July 2021 as a paramedic, and I'm still working frontline full time. That's what I enjoy.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And then James, your story is a lot more easier and direct than our twisted route into the ambulance service.
Yeah, so my route, a lot easier. No, not easier. I don't think easier is necessarily the right term.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Just slightly different. So obviously I did the direct entry programme to the University of Surrey, which obviously you guys I think had a bit more experience of the service before you've landed in your roles currently. Still difficult, still attending university, attending university full time. Luckily at that time my course was funded and paid for, so I was quite lucky in that respect. I think a lot of places now, a lot of universities, the courses are not funded. Students are having to self-fund, tuition fees at £9,000 a year, isn't it? So I was very, very lucky for that. So 3-year BSc. At the time, they were still doing the foundation degree. So obviously now, all students have got to have a full BSc degree.
Oh, so it was just you did 2 years and then that was it? You was
That was the foundation,
yeah.
But I did the BSc.
Yeah.
A bit naively, really, because I didn't know the difference. I was like, well, if I'm going to go to uni...
Might as well do a whole year extra work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that worked out in your favour.
And actually, yeah, no, it has. It has.
Top-up module in the end or anything.
A bit by accident, because you speak to guys, out and about now, and it's like, oh, how are you? Oh, I've got loads of work on. So, oh, how are you doing? Because I'm doing the top-up. And it's like, oh, right, okay. Having to effectively do that extra year.
But it's not a requirement. You don't have to do the top-up, do you?
No, I don't think so.
I was going to say, because you've still got loads of, IHCD paramedics on the road that don't have degrees or top-ups like that.
No, it's true. It's definitely a benefit having the BSc for further
education.
Progression, further education, yeah.
Yeah.
So qualified as a paramedic in 2015, working frontline for a trust, and then moved trusts in 2016, sorry, yes. 2016.
Sam knows more about James than
Yeah.
he does about himself, yeah.
I miss him so much, that's why he moved miles and miles away from us all.
So worked frontline for another trust. 2019 I went part-time and worked part-time in EOC, in Clinical Hub. I know there's different terms across the country, but triaging calls over the phone, clinical advice. Ended up doing about a year and a half of that, give or take, and went back on a DCA frontline. And then about a year and a half ago I went across to Heart, saving the world one by one.
Sweet.
So
cool.
I'm still working for Heart full time.
As we speak. He's on shift now, doing this now, he's not doing that. So that gives a nice little introduction to us all, really. So hopefully you get to know a little bit about us now. We've got a bit of a teaser, haven't we? At the start, we're doing a giveaway to celebrate the podcast.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I thought we were doing that at the end of the episode.
Oh no, this is just a teaser. We're not telling them all about it.
Oh, okay, cool. Right.
But we're going to do a giveaway to celebrate the podcast. We'll sort of tell you more about it at the end. But that's sort of the teaser. And then that kind of leads nicely on to introducing what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a paramedic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do. You guys already are. I'd love to be one, thanks. But yeah, and so we're just going to be talking about our experiences. We've got James, you did the direct route straight from school into uni. Sam and I have done like a more, it's a bit longer, but it both has its pros and cons, doesn't it, of having in-house and direct entry.
Yeah, I'd say our routes differ slightly though, because you're doing the new sort of Cumbria route, which is still sort of trust-led, although it's a university programme, whereas mine was still university-led but in-service, so I still went to university and went to like an actual physical building.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Well, I just go to like the ambulance services training centre, basically. Yeah, cool. So did you want to talk about George's experience, Sam?
Yeah, I can talk about mine. So I did the in-service programme, which was 3 years. So it's still the full 3-year course is still the full sort of bachelor's degree at St George's University, who personally I highly recommend. I enjoyed my time on the course and the bits that we got on with. Specifically, so I'll talk about, I guess, like the route onto the programme. So for us, we had to apply for it. So at the time, we've changed now. We've moved to the Cumbria programme as well as a trust. But at the time, we were had a direct like ECA to paramedic route. So you did your ECA course, and then after X amount of time on the road, you could apply for AP, Associate Practitioner, and then complete your Associate Practitioner course, which acts almost as like a bridging gap for like the lack of A levels if you didn't have the right A levels or the right amount of UCAS points to get onto a paramedic program. So if you're someone that struggles with the academic side, which I will openly admit like I'm not the best with my academic side, I think that route is probably more preferential for you.
Is that because they sort of like help you more with the academic side of things, as opposed to... Cause
yeah, I guess that there's still like, you've still got to get on with the academic side of it, but I mean like A-levels, for example, weren't my forte. Like when it came to... I did A-levels, but I did not get good grades in them. I don't know if that's because I just struggled at the time. I feel as I've gotten older, I find education easier. And I don't know if that's like a concentration thing, a maturity thing, I don't know what it is, but yeah. So maybe that's part of it, but there was a lot more support from like the service I worked for, I guess, in achieving the goals that I needed to get to the next goalpost. Whether it be from like my colleagues on station or management on station or the clinical education department themselves.
Oh yeah, because they've got motivation to make sure that you get through, because they get funding for that, and also they get a paramedic out of it as well, because they're paying for it, aren't they? So
yeah,
I suppose
absolutely.
they want to like push you through and give you as much help. Where it's the same as Cumbria, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So the trust, you know, that's again another pro to the program is the fact that the trust funded it all for me, as well as that I'm still a paid full-time member of staff on whatever pay band you're on at the time.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it's nice to not have to worry about the financial side of it and know that you're supported there as well. But yeah, so the application process was apply, you did your AAP program, you're in AAP for X amount of like years or time before they let you onto the paramedic program, which is good because it lets you build up more sort of experience on road and get used to working in a sort of more senior scope of practice to what you were when you're an ECA in terms of like responsibility and autonomy and medications you can administer and bits like that. And then yeah, applied for the paramedic program. So for us, we had to do a assessment day, obviously like usual online sort of job statement and personal statement and bits like that. And then an assessment day which composed of us, we had to present a CPD folder, and then we did a practical assessment, like a sort of mini OSPE type thing.
Line.
And then we had a face-to-face interview and a JR Calc paper.
Was that, and you had to get 100% in that, didn't you?
Oh, was it 100%? It might have been 80%.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have been. It was a multi-choice paper, but yeah, it was a high percentage pass. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Was it, with that JR Calc paper, was it sort of the generic type stuff, or was there some like quite specific bits in there? Because I know
there was some niche things. So it was like, it wasn't the JR Calc as in the pocket book. It was the JR Calc as in the
book,
big book. Like, and
because some of our guys did the assessments for AAP, and they said they'd been asked some very like neat, let's say niche bits, and it was like
what percentage of men with chest pain are having cardiac events or whatever.
Yeah, like quite specific.
Okay,
stuff.
we didn't have anything that. We had niche things like there were like questions about like blast injuries and trauma, things that we like. If you didn't know, you just wouldn't know, because it's not like we go to that sort of thing on a daily basis or deal with those sort of injuries unless it's like your specialism, you know, like crit care or something like that. But again, you just had to put in the work and study. And for me personally, like I was really lucky. The station that I work at has a lot of specialist paramedics at it from both urgent and critical care, and so them plus my experienced paramedics, my managers were all very supportive of me and others on station in trying to achieve what we wanted to achieve. So
yeah, and then from when you got onto the course, and it was basically like a normal degree then from there.
Yeah, so the in-service program is good because you're still doing like a full degree and you still get the exact same amount of it as a direct entrant.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're earning while you learn.
You did like placements and you attended like lectures and stuff.
Yeah,
like
so
that?
we still did placements and stuff, which I think is different to the Cumbria route. So we still do.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
Well, we did like in hospital placements. So basically, we were still doing the exact same course. That's what I was going to say. As what so we shared our cohort with direct entrant or straight to university students. We were split between two trusts on the same cohort. In terms of like who they did their placement with, they did their placement with different trusts to us, and so from that we still went to uni the exact same time as each other, which was a little bit of like not like a negative to the course, but a little bit like made it harder for us as in-service. I'd say as a con to the in-service sort of thing was that whilst the direct entrants weren't at uni at the same amount of time that we weren't at uni, like we all shared the exact same rota for being in uni, but when we weren't at uni we were working full time on the road still. And to try to fit in study around your personal life, whether you've got children or working full time, or it was quite difficult and made it a little bit more challenging. And then that obviously the direct entrants are probably sat in I can't really say like just sat in halls doing nothing, but they're not. They've got time to study more than what we did.
Yeah, although some of those might have held down jobs as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying didn't. Absolutely, yeah, no. But there was definitely probably like the ones that we spoke to and the ones that we knew. Like a lot of them were just university and university focused, and that was it. They didn't do like anything else on top of that. But overall, I mean, I think the in-service route. I'm very pro of it because I think it gives you a real life expectation of what the job is, and I feel now, like I didn't qualify and then become burnt out really quickly or anything like that because I was like disappointed with what I was going to on the road or what I go to on the road.
Yeah.
I knew what the job entailed and what the job was already, and I furthered my career because I enjoyed what we did already.
That's it, yeah.
Whereas
I've got what you was getting into, didn't you?
Exactly. Whereas I've got friends or colleagues who qualify. One of my old crewmates who, like, I absolutely adore him. I mean, without him, I wouldn't be a paramedic. Like, he was fantastic and supported me in my last year. No, I won't name drop him because he'll probably hate me. But like, I watched him in his NQP years and stuff, and he became burnt out very quickly. And it's not a negative reflection on him at all because he's a wonderful, wonderful paramedic. But like you'd notice whether it was him or other colleagues, I think they come out sort of like expecting big job, big job, big job, and then become very disillusioned and very frustrated very quick with the fact that a lot of our work now is urgent care and like care in the community, primary care sort of stuff, as opposed to all the big emergency type stuff.
Yeah, I think like most people join the ambulance service and go, oh yeah, it's all cardiac arrests and massive RTCs and stuff like that, and then your first shift out on the road is, you go to, this old lady who's fallen over, this young person with DMV, and you're like, oh god, is that it? And then it sort of takes you a while to realise what you need to enjoy from work, do you know what I mean? And but yeah, at least going into that, you've already got your expectations sorted, haven't you? So then, so do other ambulance services do that route in still? Or is it all that national Cumbria thing?
I think most of them, I don't know of any that do like partner with another university now. I think most people are partnered with Cumbria.
Cumbria seems to have taken over the ambulance world almost.
Yeah, I think it's because they offer I think their programme is good in terms of like, because any trust can access it, I think, as well, because they second your own paramedics to the lecturing team, don't they?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So they don't have like George's lecturers there. The staff are employed by Cumbria, but they're seconded from that specific ambulance service.
Right.
So yeah.
How did you find time wise? So from starting as an ECA to then getting on the course, actually like day one, I'm starting my AAP journey. What was that sort of time frame? Because there are, across different services, some services it's a really short period of time. Some colleagues of mine have had to wait 2 years.
So
actually getting on the course.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, so
not even from starting, not even from starting as an ECA day one.
If you wanted to do it, like if you went in full steam ahead and was like, I'm going to be a paramedic, this is what I'm here for, you could probably go through it and do it quite speedily. Like, I think there's no real restriction. I think it's a year minimum on the road as an ECA is what the trust asks before they let you apply, or at the time, so we don't do that, we now do like the Cumbria route they run us, but I know the route for the Cumbria, for example, time frame wise, is you join as, we still have ECAs that can go on and do the internal AAP program, or you can come directly in as an AAP. So you've got to complete your AAP program, which takes about a year. I think about a year, Tommy?
It's about a year and a half. And so
a year and a half.
I think nowadays, so the trust I work for, so AAP is Associate Ambulance Practitioner, which is the qualification that I think pretty much every trust in the UK does now. Some trusts call them technicians, some trusts call them AAPs. But yeah, so it's run as like an apprenticeship, and it takes about 1.5 years, and you can literally come from, you can work in Sainsbury's or something and then come straight in and do that. Or you can work as go in as an ECA, which is, emergency care assistant. So yeah.
And I think so time frame. Sorry, back to the time frame. So yeah, so it's as soon as you're officially qualified as an AAP, you're eligible to apply for the paramedic program at that point. So it's, I mean, that's within 1.5 years. You can then go on to do your paramedic program, which is then 2 years. So overall, 3.5 years from. And
every trust is different. So my trust
starting to paramedic.
Yeah. My trust says as soon as you qualify as an AAP, you can jump on straight into the company.
Yeah, exactly. That's same for us. Exactly. There's no restriction on it. I took my time to get there because that was what the pace I was comfortable with. I didn't want to rush to it. I was happy in each role that I was in, and I worked within that role until I felt I'd achieved all I could achieve. And I'd advise that to other people as well. Like, although there's like this, I really want to be a paramedic, I would say get confident and be confident in your current scope before you move on to another scope and take on that additional responsibility, because it can be quite a leap going from being that person that holds very minimal responsibility to then taking on responsibility by responsibility, and it sort of hits you and weighs down on you. But yeah, take your time with it. Don't rush to paramedic if you're doing the in-service route. Is my opinion of it. But each their own. Do whatever you want to do, obviously.
So Tommy, you spoke quite a bit about the AAP course and obviously little bits from here and there. Why don't you sort of talk us through like where you started and where you're at now with it?
Yeah, so I moved from control out onto the road, and they were doing an ECA course. I think is a brilliant way to sort of get into the ambulance service if you're not sure if you want to be a paramedic. And it's dead easy. It's about a 1 month course, clinical course, and then you do 1 month of driving. You learn the basics, and then the idea is you go out on the road and, your crewmates kind of teach you most of the things that you need to know. And then within about 6 months of being out on the road, you kind of get to the gist with most of it. You get to know some of the medicines that the paramedics give, and you can assess most things, especially the low acuity things. And then, if you go to something like really high acuity, like someone having a heart attack or, a cardiac arrest, then your crewmate would then take over and they would just do most of the work. And then, so I think that's a brilliant way to get into the ambulance service. And then from there, you can then go on to be an AAP or technician. And that's a bit more grueling. So I think we did about 6 months in the classroom, and then we went out onto the road. And then you do a year on the road as like an apprentice, as like a trainee. And then after that, because it's like an official apprenticeship, you then do an endpoint assessment at the end of your year, and that involves a multi-choice questionnaire on like road signs and general stuff about safeguarding, and then you have to do an OSPI at the end of it as well, which is, it's just like you're a solo responder. You just need to show that you can do BLS as a solo responder, and once you've been on the road for a year, it's straightforward. It's absolutely fine. And then so it's brilliant. And then that's if you don't have any A levels, that AAP course is your level 4 qualification to then get onto the university degree.
Like the equivalent of doing A levels.
Yeah, so that's the
or
equivalent
an
of
access
A levels,
course, yeah.
Or an access course, yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's another route in as well, isn't it? Like doing an access course and then straight into university. I suppose we can probably talk about that in a bit. But I think the main difference with Cumbria to all of the others is that it's an apprenticeship degree. So what that means is that you don't do any placements, and you do on-the-job learning hours and off-the-job learning hours. So when you are working with a paramedic, you're an apprentice. You're an apprentice paramedic. You're a student paramedic. But then when you're not working with a paramedic, you're just an AAP. Yeah, and then you can practice your stuff. You can practice your skills when you're working with a paramedic. But when you're not working with a paramedic, you can't use your paramedic skills, so you can't like cannulate people, which makes sense because you're going to need a mentor there to do that.
So off the back of that, I don't know how you find it as someone that's still as a student at the moment. So I found that as quite a negative at times of like being an in-service student, was that you weren't supernumerary. So I had a paramedic crewmate, I had a band 6 crewmate, and then another paramedic crewmate for like the later half of my degree. And I felt that at times it was harder to be recognised as a student, and your crewmate almost sort of felt like they didn't need to teach you anything because you're in service, you're a novice, or they forget, and it's like this, and it's like, well, I still want that mentoring, so I feel I didn't get the same mentoring experience perhaps as what you might have gotten, James.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because I never had like those sit down conversations with anyone specifically. Like all my conversations, if I did have them, came from like a team leader, and that was more like appraisally, like just checking your progress sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not. I don't mean that as like a bad reflection on my crewmates at the time or anything. Like I still feel they looked after me well, and I was still able to learn from them, but there wasn't that like, you are my student, I am your mentor sort of like relationship.
And it's true, because when you go to a bigger job as well, there's nothing on me that tells anyone that I'm a student paramedic. So I'll rock up at a big job and they'll look at me as like a technician, and they'll go, so they're not likely to be like, oh yeah, do you want to do the IO, or do you want to get a line in, because they don't know that I can. And then you forget that you're a student paramedic. So then your mentor, your crewmate knows, and he go, oh yeah, do you want to do something? You're like, oh well, don't worry about it, kind of thing. I'll go next time. But yeah, it is difficult sometimes. But you know, it's a free degree, and it's pretty good.
I
learn a lot.
I wouldn't change it. Like I wouldn't go back and do the direct entry route now. I'm happy with the route that I did.
Yeah.
And I still prefer it, and I still recommend it, because I think you get a more rounded experience. I think you understand the job, the role, a lot better than coming directly in from, like, say, having done your A levels into the role.
The only thing about Cumbria is that because it's an apprenticeship degree, you don't do any placements. So you don't have your cannula placement, your theatre placement, your maternity placement, and all of that. It's all like, because you're an apprentice, you're expected to learn it all on the job, and that can be quite difficult, because say I've been on the road for 5 months. I've only done about 10 cannulas, and I know that cannula isn't like the be all and end all being a paramedic, but I feel like you do end up sort of making, you level yourself as a paramedic based on the amount of cannulas you managed to get in, and I haven't really got many in.
I wouldn't say you do. I think like you base yourself as a paramedic based on everything. Like,
yeah, but if you've got a paramedic who can close their eyes and get a cannula in, people go, oh yeah, he's good, isn't he?
I mean, if they're closing their eyes to put a cannula in, they're a dangerous paramedic. But it's a bit of like.
My point is that there are, I think it's a general consensus that if you can cannulate people, you're pretty good.
Not really. I mean, like,
that's what it is in my trust.
Okay, fine. Maybe in your trust. Okay, fine.
But oh yeah, you see people going in and just there's no veins there, but they can still get a line in. And because I don't do it very often, because I haven't had my A&E placement, when I get round to doing it, I don't really have like because I can do one, and then it might not be a few months until I do another one. But really, I need a consolidated day, almost like an A&E placement, to just whack in a load of cannulas, get the technique right, and then I can go out on the road, do it.
So the point being is that Cumbria route, no placements, therefore you don't feel like you've had the opportunity to practice all the skills that you need to then go and do that on the road.
Consolidate them and really sort of get the technique together. And it's the same as and that's the reason why not many trusts intubate people now, because the skill doesn't really get done that often by your sort of on a truck paramedic.
The statistics dropped, didn't they? So what was it? I can't remember the number. I'd have to get the number up somewhere, but like the amount of cardiac arrest that each paramedic was attending, and it just plummeted, hadn't it?
Yeah. That's it. And then, but yeah, so the Cumbria course, it's 2 years instead of 3 years as well, because they say that your AAP course is basically the first year of the degree. So all of the anatomy and physiology and the pathophysiology that you'll learn in the first year of the direct entry degree, you kind of learn on your technician course anyway. So you kind of don't really learn that in your second and third. They go in a bit into it, but they don't really go into depth with it. And then apart from that, it's the same. You do your assignments, you do your essays, you do your OSCEs and stuff like that. And then at the end, you still have to do a dissertation. But because it's an apprenticeship, at the end you do your dissertation like the degree. But because it's an apprenticeship, you do have to do an endpoint assessment as well, which is like an OSCE and a multiple choice question to then pass the actual apprenticeship part of it. Yeah. So there's two parts of the whole thing. You've got the apprenticeship and then you've got the degree. But it's free. It's like trust. Like it's within the trust, so you don't have to travel like one side of the UK to the other to do it, and it's pretty good. I think the downside of doing it in service is the length of time that it takes to actually get to be a paramedic. Whereas you can go from school at 18, go to uni, become a paramedic within 3 years, and bam, you're 21, 22, you're a paramedic. Where if you went the ECA route or you got straight in to be a technician, it can take you in some trusts. I mean, I've heard of some people taking them like 5 or 6 years just to get onto a paramedic degree. Well, I suppose it did with us, didn't it? Really, I mean, not that we were sort of gunning for it like straight away, but like they've tried to do their best, and it takes them 5 or 6 years to get onto the degree, and they're about 30 by the time they actually qualify, and that's the downside to it.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the first episode of the Bullhorns and Sirens podcast. We hope you enjoy our content. The podcast is presented to you by the team behind Pocket Clinician. We just wanted to say a thank you to the So You Think You Want to Be a Paramedic Facebook page for allowing us to promote episode 1. We also want to give a shout out to the Student Paramedic Survival Guide, 2nd edition. The first chapter alone is worth its weight in gold, available in most good bookshops. Go on and give it a Google for us. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and also check out our online shop, pocketclinician.square.site. And we hope you tune into the next episode. So James, tell us about your experience as a graduate direct entrance student and your direct into uni route.
Yeah, so obviously a little while ago now I've been qualified just under 8 years. So I, obviously, school, went to college, I did AS levels and failed them quite spectacularly.
Yeah.
Which was a bit embarrassing. So I then ended up doing a applied science BTEC or national diploma, depending on the terminology you use. Which a lot of the time when it comes to direct entry university students, whether that be paramedic, whether you're going to do business management or something, you kind of traditionally think of A levels. So it's kind of almost at a disadvantage already because I didn't have A levels. But the BTEC diploma, again, whatever term you want to use, counted as the equivalent of 3 A levels. Managed to get enough grades there, and then was a direct entry student, University of Surrey. So, as I said earlier, I did a BSc. There was foundation courses on offer at the time. Naively, because I didn't know much about the ambulance service, I didn't really know the difference.
Yeah.
So it was like, if I'm going to go to uni, let's do a full BSc, because it just kind of makes sense. I'm going.
Oh yeah, and you feel more qualified then at the end, I suppose. Yeah. How did you because there's loads of universities to pick from, and I know that this is quite a common question that pops up on lots of different Facebook groups out there. Did you sort of just go for one, or was there a strategy to picking your university, or was it even just applying for universities? How did you work out what the best ones to choose from were?
It's very difficult because what might be right for me might not be right for you.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I went to University of Surrey. My own personal experience was that was the only one I ended up getting an offer from.
Sorry I asked.
Okay. But that being said, ironically, all the universities I chose were 200 miles away from home.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily get the time to go to the open days, just to kind of get a general feel. I think that's definitely something that I'd recommend if you're thinking of going to university as direct entry. Go to the open days. You get a chance to speak to lecturers on the course. Get to have a look at the facilities. Normally they'll run little scenarios. There'll be some current students there you can chat to. Just get a general feel for the university. stay over for the night if you can, with family or whatever. Get a feel for the town or city. You can have a look, see what's there. Are you into your sporting facilities, or this town has got awesome sporting facilities, or you like a bit more nightlife. This place has got a good nightlife.
It's quite interesting because I didn't really think about the wider part of the university that you're going to choose. There's so much more.
Well, I think that's like a big difference probably as well between in-service route versus like a direct entry route. Is do you want that rounded university experience? Because as an in-service student, you're not going to get that, living in halls, living away from home necessarily, unless you go and work for a trust miles from your home. You're not going to get that make those student friends and student bonds and do that sort of nightlife experience and just the whole being a student.
Yeah.
Well, you really struggled to find friends at uni, didn't you, James? Yeah.
Somehow met both of you while I was at uni. So.
It's only because I think he came with subtitles for us, didn't he? I think that was,
put subtitles.
Yeah, the northern accent lets me down.
Sorry, James. So, you were talking about the city as well, like that you're in the facilities that they have as well as just
so that's something to consider as well. Obviously for me, I moved 200 miles, 4.5 hour drive away from home. That's not for everyone. It's a long way to go. So that's a consideration. Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be further away from home?
Did you struggle being away from home? For students that are thinking about I'm going to move miles from home.
At times, yeah. I think definitely at times I was, it's like, I want to be at home, but I know I can't get home for another 6 weeks. Yeah, something if you definitely prefer your home life, then I'd say pick closer. But then again, it has its benefits moving away from home. You become a lot more independent. You don't become reliant. Can't just take my washing home, or my mum's making a Sunday lunch. I can get round. So, something definitely to bear in mind.
Oh yeah, that's a good point as well. Just generally university, it just teaches you a few life skills.
Yeah.
Before you go out. Where I didn't work a washing machine until I was about 23, I think. And that's my parents. I had a very nice life with my parents, but they did everything for me. Where if I did go to uni, I probably would have learnt how to cook, clean, and do all of that before I sort of moved out properly. So yeah.
Circuit laundry though. The bane of my life.
Yeah, that's the only
Circuit laundry charging £4 for a wash.
Probably not now with the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, man, that's
probably double that.
That's probably more now. Yeah.
But yeah.
So the course itself is a good course. So very, I say structured. So because the timetable was set, you got a nice chunk of placement. You would probably get 2-3 months of time on placement. Really good period of time to consolidate your skills. Learning.
How did you feel as a student that wasn't in service? Did you have good mentors? Did you fit in well? What was your experience as a student on your placement blocks?
So I feel I was very lucky. I had 4 mentors across my 3 years who all very, very good paramedics. All now I think are in specialist or other roles as well. Just show that they've progressed, as mentors, who just, were keen to show me the way and show me the right way as well. Not show me some bad habits or. 4 good mentors, very, very lucky. They were keen to show me the way. Definitely can't complain there. And I like being out and about. For me, sitting in a classroom or a lecture hall is. It's good to get that learning in there, but I want to be out and about. I want to be doing.
Yeah, a bit of a practical learner.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I did alright on the academic stuff, and I think the direct entry route, I can speak, does come with that little bit more academia behind it.
Yeah, I find that on the Cumbria course, because they know that most of the people there, they're not sort of academics at heart. They're also a lot older as well. They literally give you lectures on academic writing. So your first assignment is an essay, and it's an academic. So you have to know a bit about critical analysis and stuff. They'll give you lectures on how to critically analyse an article.
Yeah, we had that. We had lectures on how to write,
which I think is brilliant
at an academic level.
I just don't think that they went into so much depth with that you might not get from a a direct entry university. But then again, if you've just done a BTEC or some A levels, then you've probably got those skills still in your mind to then take it on. So it's probably the sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, isn't it?
So obviously, I'd say one of the downsides to the direct entry is obviously you talked about working. So obviously you guys both getting paid while you were learning, and that can be a downside for the direct entry is you're not getting paid. So you're effectively working a full-time job by going to university, going to your lectures, going to your placements, but you're not getting paid for the luxury.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys said you get paid, so you are getting that regular wage consistently. So I did pick up a bit of work here and there, doing various bits and pieces to try and supplement. But I also did worked a couple of jobs here and there to try and boost my money a little bit, try and help out because I didn't want to quite live like a poor student.
No. I think most people do that though, don't they? Like
yeah.
They've all got sort of jobs on the side, and some of them even work as ECAs in for their trust.
Yeah, some trusts are doing that now, where they employ you as an ECA to pick up like the lower acuity calls or work on the non-emergency transport sort of things.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say, James, about your experience as an as a direct entrant at Surrey?
I think the thing is obviously you guys had that prior experience beforehand.
Yeah.
You kind of went into it knowing what the outcome was going to be. For me, I tip up on an ambulance station on day one as a new student.
That must be like nerve-wracking, right?
Uniform all crisp, boots.
Boots like a mirror.
You just stand out. Everybody knows that you're a new student.
Students here.
Students here. Nerve-wracking. You go into an environment where everybody knows everybody. And you're then trying to fit in, find your feet, find where you fit into the station and the rapport and the banter and what have you. Luckily, really good station where students were very welcome. The station had a good rapport for learning and development, so it was like this was the station to be at if you wanted to go on to other things in the future. Everyone was keen to teach each other the way, so it'd be like you get paramedics of 10 years coming in and go, oh, I've just done this job. What are the thoughts? Asking other colleagues what their thoughts were. It's like, oh, I wasn't quite sure about this. Is this something you've seen before? And that was great. Just loads of little learning opportunities.
That's good.
That is good. I like that sort of community of...
Yeah, I like that environment where you can, no matter who you are, what you've done, what your experiences are, everyone's still learning. Yeah. I think that's such a good culture to have.
So the only downside that I had during 3 years of placements was I didn't work rural, but I worked in smaller towns. So when I left the particular trust down there that I worked for and came further north, I then ended up working in a big city centre environment. So going from small towns to then a big city centre environment, that's definitely quite a culture shock. Like, given Narcan once in 3 years, to then giving it a couple of times a week, seeing a lot more diversity, different ethnicities, seeing just a lot more across the board, and at times busier, just job to job to job to job. There was maybe a little bit of downtime here and there, working where I was as a student, to then just constantly busy. It's quite a big change. So I think that's maybe something, to feedback to the university, that you do need a good mix of urban and rural placements.
Interesting.
Because you look at urban environments, 2 big hospitals in a very short distance. It's more rural, you can look at 40-45 minute run times to hospital. It's a different way of working.
Do you feel going in as a direct entrant, do you feel you had a different expectation at the time? Like, was paramedicine sold to you as like something different as to what it turned out to be, or was it exactly what you expected? What was your...
I think I went in with an open mind. I knew that it wasn't all trauma, disaster, chaos on a daily basis, which helped. I think some students go in expecting it to be like Casualty, and there'll be a helicopter crash and massive car crashes and traumatic injuries every shift without fail. And they realised very quickly that was not quite the case.
Did you have quite a high dropout rate along the way? Did you lose students because of things like that? Or
we lost a couple. There was a couple that decided it wasn't for them. There was one or two that unfortunately didn't quite make it through the academic side of stuff. I think the thing is we were all there. We all wanted to do the job. So in terms of dropout, so to speak, or not quite getting through, was actually quite low.
Oh, that's good.
So
did you have good support from the trust, not being like an in-service student, with a trust still as supportive as the university, or was you completely reliant on the university for like your support and stuff?
I think that was credit to my mentors and the colleagues that I worked with, that they were quite good on the support side. There was support from the university if I did need it. Obviously, universities have the students' union behind them, some support services through that. But I mean, I was quite lucky that I didn't need the support in various ways. Whether that be academic support or financial or whatever. I was quite lucky. But hearing from other students at the time, the support was generally very good, from what I understand.
Oh, fair.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, another thing that we wanted to touch on is like the attitudes and the mindset that you have before applying, whether it's sort of to a university from school, or whether you're like a clinician already in the ambulance service wanting to progress on to paramedic. And because I've noticed in my cohort is that you have this attitude of, not everyone, but just a few people. They come in and they think that it's going to be easy. They think that they know the job already. And then when they learn something like an abdo assessment, and we all know that in an OSCE, the abdo assessment is so in-depth, compared to actually what you do on the road, it's very different. You don't start looking at people's nails or checking their dental hygiene. But on the OSCE, that's what they ask you to do. And people go, oh, well, why are we learning this? It's got nothing to do with being a paramedic, and it's just the wrong attitude, I think.
I think that's that. I don't know about you, Joe. I reckon that's probably a heavy in-service attitude, because people already do the job on a daily basis, and so I think they sort of have that attitude of, well, this isn't what we go to, this isn't what we do. I know best, sort of thing. Absolutely. I don't know if you guys had that on your
I think because we were all new to the ambulance service world, we kind of didn't know any different.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Obviously, you go through the university, you do your OSCE or OSPE, whichever term we're going to use, and then you got on the road, and obviously then you realise it's different.
But in between then, I guess you have no reason to argue relevance of what you're being taught.
No, no. And I think everything you do learn is relevant.
I do as well, yeah, absolutely.
Has a place. Just in reality, sometimes you do your OSCEs and they don't quite pan out that way in real life, just through natural causes, not through any particular reason. Your assessments may get distracted by external factors.
That's it.
Yeah. I think pulling back to what you're saying is you need to go in to any course, whether it's direct entry in service, with a completely sort of blank slate in terms of how your attitude should be. You should go in as a willing to learn sort of attitude. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know what I'm about to be taught.
Yeah.
And even if there are bits that you do know, treat it as a refresher, because actually it's always good to refresh what you've learned and go over it, and also within our job and our career and what we do, practice changes because evidence changes, and we use a lot of evidence-based research to work with our practice now. So yeah, I think right attitude, right mindset.
Yeah. And also for the technicians and AAPs that are already in service, going to be jumping onto a Cumbria course, an OSCE is, please get this out of your mind, an OSCE is not a representation of what will happen on the road. It's so the tutors that are looking at you can see all of the different skills that you might have to do on the job. I noticed that when we did our ALS OSCE, for example, some people are complaining, going, well, on the road, I'm not gonna do the eye gel, do the IV, and also get an IO in, and it's like, well, yeah, but you need to show all of those different skills. So try and take your mind away from the fact that this is a cardiac arrest that's going to happen on the road. Try and think of it as a time and a place to demonstrate all the skills that you can do at any ALS sort of situation. And that's just an example. Probably the same with the other assessments, the cranial nerves, for example. You might be a paramedic who then goes on to work in a GP surgery, and if you've got a patient that's come in with a headache, you might want to test their cranial nerves. Do you know what I mean? So it might not be relevant to the pre-hospital world, but it might be in the GP world. Do you know what I mean? So, and there's lots of different reasons why you learn all of these things. But how do you think, what kind of attitude do you reckon you should go in with then? Like I know you said a willingness to learn and almost like a start from the beginning type of thing.
Obviously, use your experiences to help you along the way. I'm not saying go in completely blank, but go in with that openness and acceptance. Like, you shouldn't be going in going, wow, well, we do it this way or we've done it that way, and because the people that are there lecturing you and teaching you, they're not there to work against you. They're just trying to produce the best all-rounded paramedic they can. They're there to share their experiences, and it's all about sharing experiences and sharing what we all know and learn along the way.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that's true.
I think you need to probably as well go in with like a good balanced mental health and good ways of managing your mental health, which I think we're going to touch on in a later episode, but I think having a good understanding of how to look after your own well-being is key, because the job can be challenging at times, and then the added pressures of doing university work on top of that is, it could easily bring you down or alter your mental health and fluctuate quite a bit.
That's it, yeah.
So I'd say good attitude, good mental health.
Yeah, that's it, and that's more sort of. I think the mindset attitude thing is more for the in-service, the in-house degree, isn't it? Because I think that's where your attitude gets sort of a bit warped, isn't it? But in terms of
I've come across some direct entrants who they definitely have a bit of an ego on them, and they come in thinking
that's true,
they know it all, they've seen it all, they've done it all, which I think is the wrong attitude to have.
Oh, it definitely is.
You shouldn't ever come in that way, because it's just not going to sit right.
I think it's direct entry. You get taught a lot at university. They fire a lot of information at you, and like I say, it can be easy to go, well, I've been taught all this stuff and I need to be showing it off, and it's not. It's like, yes, I've been given and taught all this information, now I need to see it in reality. Definitely still going in with that open mind. Definitely bear in mind what you've been taught, but going in open mind, especially early days as a student, you're going out your first placement block. Just observe, just watch how assessments are done. You'll see a variety of different ways from different people. But keep the open mind, start developing your own techniques, your own way of assessing.
Yeah, that's it. So we hope that there's people that are listening to this who...
Just in general, we hope there's people that listen
we just hope
to this.
that people, we just hope that somebody out there is listening.
Please.
We're hoping that there's a mix of people, from people who don't work for the ambulance service, who are thinking about applying for university, and also those technicians and AAPs that are thinking of applying for Cumbria. But a thing that crops up quite a lot with people who are applying for unis is that they get disheartened when they don't get accepted for anything. And what kind of advice can we give those for that year where they have to then wait to then reapply for the next cohort for their university?
But yeah, it's funny you say that, because obviously the disheartening bit. So obviously, I went to University of Surrey. That was the last university that I interviewed and got an offer from.
Oh, okay.
So I'd had 3 rejections up to that point.
Yeah.
Out of 4.
Who else did you apply for?
So I applied for Greenwich, Brighton, Hertfordshire, which was the sandwich course at the time. So it was the 4-year course where year 3 was a placement year.
Oh wow!
Which some universities are still doing.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And then obviously Surrey as my 4th. So it was like, I've applied for. At the point of interviewing for Surrey, I applied for them and got 3 knockbacks. And that's kind of definitely a confidence shake. You're going to go in and go, well, 3 have knocked me back. Is this going to be a 4th?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you get knocked back in your first year applying, there's an opportunity there to almost boost your application. So, you could head into some work within the healthcare sector, whether that be something as, working as a carer for the elderly, maybe trying to pick something up in hospital, whether that be a healthcare assistant or even just working in a hospital environment, even in a...
Or volunteering.
Volunteering, yeah. Volunteering.
Red Cross, St John.
Yeah, some great organisations there that are, they're always taking on volunteers. Even working, whether it's working in a supermarket, you're working with people, you're dealing with people. Any sort of, public facing role is gonna boost your application, definitely.
Yeah. I think on top of that, I'd say keep positive. I know it's easier said than done, but a knockback is disheartening. But actually, we grow as people when we get rejected from things and get knocked back. And I would say always seek out feedback from where you've had your rejections from. What could I have done better next time? Why wasn't I good enough this time?
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you learn and build. And also, it's going to show
you
that
must
people...
have grown quite a lot then. Through the rejections that you've had.
It's just constantly rejected in life.
Oh, are you kidding me?
You are. You're gonna learn from. I've lost where I was. So the people that you seek that advice from are probably going to think more of you because they've gone, well, actually, this person's reached out to learn where they went wrong and learn how they can do better next time.
Feedback is key. Yeah. Feedback's key, definitely.
Yeah, massively.
Take it on board. Learn for next time.
And a year, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long, is it? And it feels like, especially when you're 18, 19, I mean, a year just feels like forever, doesn't it? But actually, it's not, and you can do so many other things in that year for when you next apply. So I think we've touched on quite a bit today in this podcast, haven't we? We've spoken about our different experiences. We've got like our in-house service routes, and we've got our direct entry routes. So hopefully, whether you are someone who is thinking about being a paramedic, you're 15, 16, doing their GCSEs, I hope this gives you an insight into a little bit about how to get yourself in there and the route that you want to take as well. If you're a technician or an ECA and you're thinking about being a paramedic, I hope this also has been a bit helpful to you. Another thing that we wanted to sort of do within the podcast is like a Q&A sort of session, and we'll do that at the end of each podcast. So if you've got any questions, and it can be related to this podcast, it can be related to the pocket books that we do or anything like that, anything to do with ambulance world or paramedics, send the question in and we'll pick 3 questions that we can answer, because there's probably going to be stuff that we don't really know what to talk about. But send them in, and you can follow us on at Bullhorns and Sirens.
At Bullhorns and Sirens on Instagram, or at Pocket Clinician on Instagram, and then our email address is pocketclinician@outlook.com.
There you go. So send your question in. Also put your name and where you're from, because it's always nice to know that. And then what are we doing next episode? We are doing...
So the next episode is fail to prepare to fail. So it's about placement prep and OSCE prep, whichever terminology your university uses.
There you go. So if you're a student and you've got placements coming up, OSCE's coming up, we'll be talking about how we prepared for our OSCEs, and James will probably talk about a little bit some tips and tricks on placement. And then also, even if you're not on a degree, at least you can get a bit of an insight on what it's like. So we did a little teaser at the start, didn't we, with the giveaway?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Sam, what's that going to be?
Okay, cool. So we, on launching this podcast, once this episode goes out, there will be a post on our Bullhorns and Sirens Instagram page, which will be one of our student paramedic bundles from the Pocket Clinician side of our brand, and that will be up for grabs. It includes one of our pocket books as well as a set of pocket cards, which are age per page pocket cards, and a GCS card that all come as a little set that clip to your belt. So one of them is up for grabs. You have to like and share the podcast link, and then also like the photo and tag 2 friends.
There you go. Not hard. And then you're in the chance to win a free student bundle.
And then we'll announce the winner on a podcast in the future, I guess.
Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, and it will be obvious, the picture that we post up on the Bullhorns and Sirens Instagram.
We'll put the word giveaway really big on it.
Giveaway, free stuff.
Keywords.
That's it, yeah, keywords. But anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next podcast episode. Yeah, cheers guys, see you later.
Thank you.
Liz.
Before we go, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Student Paramedic Survival Guide, 2nd edition, which is available now in most good bookshops. We've been told that the first chapter alone is worth its weight in gold to student paramedics and or aspiring to become student paramedics. So go on and give that a Google for us. And also just a little thank you to the So You Want to Be a Paramedic Facebook page for allowing us to promote our first episode on their group as well. Thank you.